What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go.
Speaking of Lincoln Riley, you think he can ever win in the Big Ten? You think this is going to be one of those things that the buyout's so big? They have a 2026 recruiting class, the number one recruiting class, but it feels like I don't know. What are your over thoughts just on Lincoln Riley and USC?
I can be a pretty big hater on this situation because I think that where you're from and where you coach in college matters. Like James Franklin's from Pennsylvania. It fits. Kirby Smart, he played at Georgia, Southern guy, fits at Georgia. Before you even win or lose a game, like people want to like you, right? Rich Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. He's our guy. You know, the guy when Chris Peterson went to Washington, he's a West Coast guy, intellectual, that school, it just fit. This is a weird fit. You got a dude from Texas, right? Coaching at LA, not winning. I heard Klatt say this. He's like, you got to be pretty careful. And because I always like talk shit when Colin would come on, big USC guy. And I was like, what is going on? This is a joke. A lot of their losses last year actually weren't that bad in terms of like, they weren't getting blown out. They lost crazy games, right? They lost crazy games that they should win. Penn State, Aller, and Tyler Warren pulled plays out of their you-know-what to win that game. Yeah. Minnesota, all-time epic meltdown. You were telling me I'd forgotten about this game. Like, they could have beat Notre Dame, right?
Michigan, too. I mean, Notre Dame he threw 2 back-to-back pick sixes. And in the Michigan game, Kalel Mullings became a superstar, had that like 80-yard touchdown, and they came back on that game, too. I just wonder, just the whole brand of Lincoln Riley, just defensively, and the defensive coordinator, and like what are we going to see? And then I like the receivers, but the quarterback isn't like what he's had in the past. I mean, even Miller Moss like had a bigger name because we saw him in the Holiday Bowl. Now, I guess USC did beat A&M in the bowl game, whatever you want to take that with a grain of salt or whatever. But I just think for me, they lost so many games on the road. I would.
All the A&M guys did not play.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And just for me, like I think they've had the hardest transition in the Big Ten, and I think like saw Greg McElroy has USC as like a top 15 team, and maybe he knows more in depth about this team. But they're one of those teams that I know there's a lot probably for you in college football that's like, I'll be on your side. I'm gonna show me before I can be on your side this season for USC.
I would say this about USC. I think D'Anton Lynn, who is Anthony Lynn's son, is their defensive coordinator. He's really good, and you see that quote he had within the last couple of weeks where he thought, now he's a Big Ten guy. He thought the Big Ten, because he had coached at Baltimore, was the closest thing to the NFL, trying to hype up the Big Ten. If you saw their team picture like a week ago, I've forgotten about this. Rob Ryan, you got that long white hair, big fat belly.
God, he's
is on the staff. So I think defensively they actually could be pretty good. And, I think the major question mark is the quarterback, but like that is usually Lincoln and the quarterback. They will figure it out. I think there is a lot of, LSU. I think this is kind of the Big Ten's LSU. Like the hype was, and even more, because ultimately didn't LSU want Lincoln Riley, and he basically chose USC over LSU. So it's like, okay, Lincoln. I mean, I don't need you to go 12-0, but can you go like 10-2 and have a couple big wins? I have to look at their schedule, but can he just win a game that part of being a legendary coach or a guy that's really highly paid is you got to win some games sometimes people don't think you're going to win. And I just feel like Lincoln Riley, like Missouri State, I mean, their schedule, Georgia Southern, like what a joke. Purdue, Michigan, like can they beat at Illinois? Can they beat Michigan? Can they beat Notre Dame? Can he beat Oregon? Like is he going to win? Can he win 2? Can he go 2-2 in those games?
Nebraska. Yeah. That's another team that's like kind of in that tier 2 in the Big Ten that can they get over the edge.
The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets, Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back, baby. Think you know the game? Put your college football knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. Live betting during the game, rivalry week odds boosts, and so much more. DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. Here's the thing. There is no bigger game than Saturday morning. Texas, Ohio State. I understand Arch has never started a big game. Played a couple last year, but never anything like this. Ohio State lost a ton of guys to the draft. I think this Texas team, if Arch lives up to the hype, poised to win an Natty, I'm taking Texas. I know it's at the shoe. I know it's a tough environment. I just think, as Earl Woods used to tell Tiger Woods, let the legend grow. That's what I would tell Arch Manning. Go win this game, cover that spread, money line, let the legend grow. And here's something special for first-timers, new customers. Bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code John. That's code John for new customers to get 300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
It feels like no one's talking about Georgia. Like, this team won the SEC last year. They lost the first, well, not the first round, but the second round of the college football playoff. Do you think there's a kind of sneaky pressure on them just to kind of be relevant again in the sport where there's a lot moving on with NIL and teams are moving up and down and you have all these kind of expectations and you were kind of soft last year? And I'm a Notre Dame fan. We talked about Notre Dame, Georgia, and I was on Notre Dame's side. Obviously, it just felt like that Notre Dame game was the first time you saw Georgia just get worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are not Saban, where it's just like every other year you're going to win a natty and you're just going to bang out natties. Like, I just think Georgia and Kirby is a really, really good coach. His team's going to be in the mix a lot, but it's like transfer portal, there's a little element of luck. Gunnar Stockton seems sexy, but it's like, is he going to be your full-time quarterback all season long? Like, Kirby almost feels like he talks about him like he did Stetson Bennett, and that's how I think he views it. You know, kind of like the old school Nick Saban way of like, yeah, we just do whatever. We'll build it around him. Are we sure that you're able to play like that now? Like, don't you kind of need an NFL quarterback? So I don't think he won back-to-back national championships. They hadn't won one since 1980. But I do think people start paying what they're paying for their staff, for their team. People expect like 10 wins minimum. Like, they're kind of the new Alabama because of their coach. So you don't need to win the national championship, but like last year, can you just be in the mix, be in the SEC championship game, be in the final 8 or 4? But like, the SEC's weird. If Gunnar Stockton sucks, they would have a problem.
Yeah, he's not a sexy.
When I say suck, I just mean like, you know, like Carson Beck created problems for them. Like, he just wasn't going to be good. It was going to be a tough season. And that's the thing with college. You just never know. Maybe he's gotten a lot better. They won a lot of games with Stetson Bennett. They also had an all-star team. I mean, you could argue their roster was as good as any Alabama roster over the decades. It was literally their entire defense was basically first or second rounders. They had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. I mean, it's like, that's a pretty unreal 1-2 combination to pass the ball. I mean, both those two guys are their star, quote-unquote, receiver. I know he's a tight end, but he's a receiver on their NFL teams. So it's like, it's pretty hard. Like, it's in the NIL era, it would have been much easier pre-NIL for Kirby. They would have been the new Alabama, just 2-3 deep. I think it's just more difficult now because the guy's like a backup. He was like, I'll go play at Florida State or I'll go play at Auburn. And these guys just disperse. I think I've heard Josh Pate say this. I've heard a couple different people say this. The SEC is still really strong because all the sweet players, but they just kind of get dispersed in the SEC, right? So it's like where they used to be on Bama or Georgia or those Urban Meyer Florida teams. Now the backup, like, I'm not waiting till my sophomore year. Now maybe I'll have to go to Vanderbilt or Auburn or Texas A&M, but I disperse within the South, you know? And that's a huge advantage forever for Saban and then to Kirby. Like, I mean, part of that Georgia dominant team are all those guys sitting around. I mean, hell, remember Jeremiah, like when the first people started transferring, like Jeremiah Johnson, who went to Florida State and was drafted in the first round a couple years ago. Because he was like a third stringer, but like pre-NIL, he just would have had to stick it out and maybe would have had a sweet year, but he would have had to wait his time. Like, people don't wait anymore.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think one thing with them this year will be interesting is most of those losses they had last year are home games. Mike Bobo's back. They're going to probably run the ball more. Nate Frazier, the running back's really good. They went out and got some receivers. Like, the amount of drops they had last year at Georgia, like, those receivers last year were horrible. But another team that,
but I will say this on Georgia, they throttled. I mean, that first game when they played Texas, it felt like a different. Like, I mean, they were just destroying them up front. obviously they lose. I mean, Walker gets drafted in the first round to Alabama, and Michael Williams gets drafted in the first round to the 49ers. Like those are two guys that historically I'd be like, well, they just got the next crew, and they will have excellent defensive players. It is just more difficult because sometimes that next excellent player comes from like a group of 4 or 5 guys. They battle it out, and then the cream rises. Well, it's like 3 or 4 of those guys might leave now, and you're really dependent on those two guys to be those that fill in, and maybe they have transferred around. So it's just harder to replace your no doubt about it #1 overall draft pick, even at the sweetest school. You might get it right, but you don't have like 5 guys to pick from. You're picking from like 2 or 3, and they just better work out.